Lyra got too close to the school bully. She ended up being targeted for revenge by a teenage delinquent girl who secretly liked the bully, and both of Lyra's legs were permanently disabled. Right when the system asked if I wanted to return home, I chose no. Then I used all my points to exchange for a recovery card, helping her stand up once more. I paved the way for her to become the top star in the entertainment industry. However, just when I thought we could finally be together, the school bully came looking for her again. That night, Lyra never came home. She and Kenji were spotted going into a hotel, which immediately shot up the trending searches. So when the system asked me if I wanted to renew the recovery card about to expire using my points, I simply said no. Chapter 1. This time, I'm not renewing it. The system reminded me, next time will be your last chance. Renew the recovery card 3 times, and it becomes permanent. Please confirm once more. Would you like to continue using points to renew? It was the first time it had repeatedly asked for my decision. It doesn't understand human emotions, nor why my answer would differ from the previous 2 times. But perhaps it had seen the trending searches. Top star Lyra spotted entering a hotel late at night with a certain man. That was how I finally found out why the person who was supposed to celebrate my birthday with me never showed up. The watermarked video wasn't especially clear, but anyone who knows Lyra can recognize her, even if it's just a blurry silhouette in black and white. And the man holding her tightly, spurring endless online speculation, was also instantly recognizable to me. Kenji. After so many years, this person who once gave me so much grief has shown up again. No one expected he would ever come looking for Lyra again. After all, back then Lyra got bullied and had her legs broken by the jealous delinquent girl, all because she was too close to him. Even so, Kenji only came to see her once. He said, "Lyra, you'll get better. Forget about me. You'll meet someone better than me one day." That was all he left behind. Then, taking his admission letter, he vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, Lyra's injuries were so severe that she didn't even take the college entrance exam. The once cheerful, outgoing girl became depressed and fragile overnight, clinging to my hand, asking, "Leo, will you ever leave me?" "I would not," I said. So when the system asked if I wanted to go home, I chose no. Then I used all my points to exchange for a recovery card and helped her walk again. Later, she wanted to enter the entertainment industry, so I poured every resource I had into helping her pry open those doors. During that time, I wore many hats. I was an assistant at a media company by day, a gopher for small film crews by night, and took on editing freelance gigs on weekends. The money I saved went into acting, voice training, and image overhauls for her. More than once she asked me, "Can we really make it like this?" I promised her, "Just keep moving forward. I'll figure out the rest." So I did whatever it took, begged for help, forced myself to laugh at the right moments, raised countless toasts. I even ended up with a serious stomach condition from all the drinking, just so she could reach the place she stands today. For her sake, I endured every hardship. She would also be the first to call me when she got caught up in rumors. Don't believe them. There's no truth to any of it. It's all been handled. But just as I found success in my own career and she became a top-tier celebrity, when all our friends were sure we'd end up together, Kenji returned. I watched that looping video quietly, then called Lyra's phone. Connected, and a lazy male voice answered. "Hello, why?" I hung up immediately. Kenji's voice is unmistakable, rough, blunt, with a hint of arrogance. Lyra once teased him, "Why do you always sound so fierce? No wonder girls avoid you." They were once desk partners, and I sat behind them, studying, feeling out of place. Yet I witnessed every glance they exchanged, every subtle sign of affection. Those tiny details I had deliberately forced myself to forget. Now they resurfaced like sharp blades, cutting into my heart. On my 28th birthday, I lit a single candle and let it burn down. Then I confirmed to the system, no. Chapter 2. I saw Kenji at Lyra's apartment. Just as I was halfway through entering the passcode, the door was pulled open from inside. Kenji stood there in a half-buttoned black shirt, his slicked-back hair slightly messy, but still carrying that same delinquent air from before. When he saw me, he stubbed out his cigarette and frowned, almost imperceptibly. I hadn't expected to see him here. He, however, wasn't the least bit surprised. Smiling, he greeted me. "Oh, it's you, Leo. Long time no see." 6 years. It had been a long time. But despite all these years, he hadn't changed at all. still as brash and self-assured. That same reckless, devil-may-care glint in his eyes. I could never understand Lyra. Never would. Was her life too smooth now, too uneventful? Did she crave the same reckless thrill of spiraling into the abyss just because she happened to reunite with the very man who had abandoned her all those years ago? It had been 3 days since the scandal broke. Lyra hadn't contacted me even once. Her agency had already issued a statement. The man who entered the hotel with Lyra is her new agent. Due to a tight filming schedule the next day, they stayed up through the night discussing the script and production details before leaving in the morning. Please refrain from excessive speculation. False rumors have already caused distress to the artist. The studio reserves the right to pursue legal action. Entertainment industry statements were always half-truths at best. Their only purpose was to pacify fans. I tried to push aside thoughts of what might have happened between them over the past 3 days. Just as I was about to speak, a nervous voice called out behind me, "Leo, what are you doing here?" I turned around. In the brightly lit hallway, she stood, tall and slender, brows slightly furrowed. She quickly walked toward me and repeated, "What are you doing here?" Meeting her uneasy gaze, I answered in a low voice, "The USB drive I left here last time. I came to get it. It was supposed to be a gift, something she was supposed to bring me on my birthday, but she never showed up. In the end, I had to come retrieve it myself." At my words, her face stiffened. A reflexive, guilty murmur slipped from her lips. "I'm sorry, I forgot." 3 days later, she finally remembered breaking our plans. But it no longer mattered. I glanced past her at the still silent Kenji inside and asked, "Why is he here?" This apartment was the first thing I bought with my own earnings. It wasn't in a prime location, but it had a beautiful view. When I handed her the keys, I had joked, "Our future superstar needs a place of her own." She had smiled brightly, correcting me. "It's not just my place, it'll be our future home together." Every single piece of furniture inside was something we had chosen together, arranged together. Even the tea set on the counter was something we had picked out after visiting countless shops. But in the end, I never got to live here. The area was too remote, too inconvenient. Lyra had been disappointed. I had stood by the window, watching the leaves sway, and reassured her with a smile. "Then I guess we'll just have to save it for retirement." Even after we bought better places, she always came back to this one whenever she had time off. She had told me, "Every corner of this place smells like you. I sleep better here." Even when we once had a terrible fight and nearly broke up, she had insisted, like fighting for custody of a child, that she had to buy the apartment from me. Now I took a glance around. A pair of men's shoes at the entryway, a toppled wine glass on the coffee table, scattered stockings and lingerie on the floor, fresh tulips in the vase replacing the ones I used to bring. The air was thick with the overwhelming scent of roses, suffocating. Kenji spoke first, feigning sincerity. "Sorry, Leo. Don't be mad. I'll leave right now." His voice had that smug, almost imperceptible lilt at the end. Lyra frowned. "Why should you leave, Kenji?" Then she pouted, turned to me, and declared, "Kenji has nowhere to stay right now. From now on, he'll be living here." Her tone carried an indignant accusation as she added, "Kenji is struggling right now, Leo. That's partly your fault." Chapter 3. I knew Kenji was doing terribly. The night he appeared on the trending searches, I used the system to glimpse something I was never meant to see. After the college entrance exams, Kenji got into a decent university. There he met Sora, the department's campus belle. Sora merely teased him a few times, and he was instantly hooked, spending every penny of his living expenses just to buy her gifts. Only then did she begrudgingly agree to date him. After graduation, he went even further, handing over his entire paycheck to her, tattooing her name on his body, and almost getting a vasectomy just because she mentioned it in passing. But just when they were about to get married, Sora took out a massive loan using his ID, pocketed the money as her dowry, and ran off with a rich guy. The once feared school bully didn't seek revenge. He didn't even report her to the police. All he did was send her one desperate text after another begging her to come back. When Lyra ran into Kenji, he was on the run from debt collectors, frantically hiding in the underground parking lot of the venue where she had just finished an event. It was the same night she was supposed to meet me for my birthday. To be honest, after all these years together, after everything I had done for her, even after I drank myself into a bleeding stomach ulcer for her, I had never seen her look the way she did that night. But when she saw Kenji, her eyes were full of pain, heartache, and something else, something I couldn't quite put into words, like a flood about to burst through its dam. That night, they went to a hotel together. Lyra learned about his betrayal. Kenji had sighed bitterly, saying, "If I had never met Sora, I wouldn't have ended up like this. If I had never gotten into that university, I never would have met her." Then he added, If Leo hadn't meddled in my business and helped me study, I wouldn't have gotten into that school in the first place, right? This was my fault. I never should have pitted him. When I realized that his cocky bravado was just a mask for his wounds, I shouldn't have stepped in when his stepbrother bullied him. I shouldn't have helped him when his stepfather beat him so badly he broke a bone while his mother stood by, indifferent. I definitely shouldn't have used all my scholarship money to rent him an apartment when he begged me to help him escape from his family. And I absolutely shouldn't have agreed to help him when he pleaded with me, saying he wanted to get into a school far, far away, just so he could finally run from his past. But I had no choice, because my mission in this life, the reason I had traveled here, was Kenji. As long as I ensured he safely escaped his toxic family, my mission would be complete. But then something unexpected happened. I fell in love with Lyra. I even gave up returning home just to keep renewing her recovery card so she could walk again. When I asked the system how I could earn more points, it told me, create value for more people. The more lives you impact, the more points you will gain. So in college, I started making videos and working part-time. After graduation, I joined a media company, scraping together points just to extend her recovery card each time. Now, looking back, all that effort, all those points, had been wasted. I watched as Kenji casually stepped into what was supposed to be our bedroom. I couldn't help but sneer. If your legs had never healed, Lyra, would you still be standing here calmly pitying him? Would you still feel guilty enough to save him? Her expression slowly hardened. I knew that look. She was about to get angry. Sure enough, the next second she snapped. The fact is, my legs did heal. And besides, the person who hurt me was that delinquent girl, not Kenji. Can't you be a little more generous? That was all in the past. Do you really have to be so cold and heartless? Kenji was our classmate. Are we supposed to just ignore him over some insignificant ancient history? She called it insignificant. I repeated the words silently in my head. At that moment, the system sent me a notification, friendly reminder. The recovery card has expired. Patient's condition will soon revert to its original state. Chapter 4. The recovery card had never restored her in a single night, and now just the same, the effects wouldn't disappear instantly. It would take time for her body to revert. Our conversation ended on a sour note. Before I left, Lyra scoffed and reminded me, Leo, you should understand, this is my decision. You have no right or position to interfere. She wasn't wrong. Because of her career, we had never officially been together. Just like back then, when my status as her childhood friend hadn't been enough to stop her from running toward Kenji without hesitation. I walked down the stairs, step by step. For some reason, I suddenly remembered that night in our second year of high school when the power had gone out during evening study. Lyra had almost tripped on the stairs, but I caught her wrist just in time. Startled, she gasped, "That scared me to death." I had reassured her, joking, "What's there to be scared of? I'd never let you fall." But then, almost unconsciously, she murmured, "Kenji has night blindness. I wonder if he's okay in that pitch-black world." I had held her steady, and she had been worrying about someone else. Now she was standing tall again, saying, "Kenji is struggling. I can't just ignore him." The taste of history repeating itself was bitter. We were adults now. There was no need to spell things out. Memories blurred with the present. I had to admit it. Whatever fate once bound me to Lyra had already been severed long ago. Even now, I could still recall the day during rehearsal when I came to pick her up. She had run toward me, grinning against the wind. Her dress fluttered wildly, much like my heart. But looking back now, I realized that wind had died down a long time ago. We didn't see each other again after that. Even before this, after she shot to fame, we barely had time to meet. Her schedule was packed, and I was busy with my own work. The few times we did see each other, she would always smile and say, "Leo, why don't you be my personal assistant? That way we can see each other every day." I could have, but I needed to make sure the final renewal of the recovery card went smoothly before I could let go of my job. So I told her to wait a little longer. By the time I was finally ready, That personal assistant she had talked about had become Kenji. They rode in the same car, attended the same events. Even in their free time, they went shopping and ate together. On Lyra's birthday, I saw a mutual friend's post on WeChat, a picture of the two of them captioned, "Dreams do come true." The camera focused on them. The room was filled with roses. A cake sat on the table. Kenji held a ring, dressed in a casual black and white suit, an arrogant smirk on his face. And Lyra looked at him like he was the center of her world. Her smile radiant, no longer carrying the distance she had when they first reunited. She looked loved. My heart clenched painfully. It reminded me too much of our school days, when Kenji had plucked flowers from the park just to make Lyra laugh. I remembered how she had told him back then, "I hope the person I love will propose to me on my birthday." And now she had gotten exactly what she wished for. I closed my eyes, listening to the slow, heavy thudding of my heart. I knew I couldn't be indifferent. I remembered the way Lyra had called my feelings insignificant, and suddenly I started looking forward to something. The day the recovery card would fully expire. Chapter 5. Before it expired, I met Lyra one last time. It wasn't a farewell party for a friend who was leaving the country. Kenji was there too. The two of them stood side by side, unmistakably the center of attention at the gathering. By the time I arrived, Lyra was already receiving well wishes from the crowd. "Congratulations, Lyra. You finally found your happiness." Life is unpredictable. In the past, whenever Lyra and I appeared together, the glances exchanged between us were always ambiguous, laced with unspoken emotions. But now the tides had shifted. The ones being teased were Lyra and Kenji, and this time the hints were far more direct. Of course, most people there didn't actually know the details of what had happened between Lyra and Kenji back then. I had arrived a little late, though I wasn't sure what had been discussed during those few minutes I had missed due to traffic. I only caught the voice of one of Lyra's close friends teasing, "Wow, the campus queen and the bad boy. It's such a sweet match." Lyra used to talk about Kenji all the time back in the day. "I never thought you two would have a second chance at love." But not everyone knew when to keep quiet. Someone suddenly asked Kenji, "Speaking of which, didn't Lyra injure her leg back then? Where were you all those years?" Kenji chuckled smoothly, covering for himself. "Ah, that. If anything, it was my fault. I owe Lyra for that." Lyra clearly didn't want Kenji to take the blame and quickly interrupted. "Oh, come on, let's not bring this up. It's really nothing. I'm standing here just fine now, aren't I? It was just a small injury, no big deal." Just then, someone spotted me entering the room. Always eager to stir the pot, they grinned and called out, "Still, a small injury is still an injury. I heard that Leo stayed with you throughout your whole recovery. Honestly, you two grew up together and went through so much. I always thought you'd end up together." Kenji abruptly lifted his gaze toward me, his brow furrowing slightly. Lyra rolled her eyes at me. Her tone detached as she said, "Going through hardships together? That's an exaggeration. The one who healed my leg was the doctor, not Leo. To be honest, whether he was there or not, it didn't really matter. As for childhood friends, we grew up in the same orphanage. If that's the standard, I've had so many childhood friends I've lost count. It was in this world I was an orphan, an identity specially crafted for me by the system. I had grown up alongside Lyra, but I was never the only one. And yet, before Kenji reappeared, Lyra had always emphasized how our bond was different. She used to say, I was the first person to talk to Leo, the first name he ever remembered, the first person to hold his hand while playing games. She always remembered every first we had shared. She always told me that what we had was different, that it was one of a kind. But now here she was, telling everyone that our past was nothing special after all. The room fell silent for a moment under the weight of their stares. I stepped into the private lounge, handed the farewell gift to the friend who was leaving, then turned to Lyra with an easy smile. That's right. We owe it all to the doctor's miraculous skills. I thought to myself, yes, all thanks to the doctor's expertise. Only through countless apologies, countless variations of "we've done everything we can," did they finally, with barely restrained excitement, tell me, this is nothing short of a medical miracle. But what they didn't know, what no one knew, was that miracles come with an expiration date. Chapter 6. As the gathering neared its end, I ran into Kenji in the restroom. Standing in front of the sink, he casually pulled out a cigarette, lit it, and took a slow drag. Then he smiled and said to me, "Leo, thanks. It was you who taught me to seize every opportunity by any means necessary, and now I've seized it. You must be happy for me, right?" I was speechless. I did remember. Years ago in another restroom, he had been pinned to the ground by a group of thugs sent by his stepbrothers. Filthy water had been dumped over him without hesitation. It was late in the afternoon, and the school building was nearly empty. I had been walking down the quiet hallway when I heard the commotion and, without thinking, ran inside. I had been alone too, yet I still grabbed a stick and fought them off, pulling Kenji out of that mess. After cleaning him up, I threw him my spare school uniform to cover himself, and at that moment, when I shielded him and let him out of the restroom, the system that had brought me into this world, that had erased my memories and let me live freely for years, finally appeared with a notification. "Host, your mission target has appeared." I asked, "Who is it?" It answered, "Kenji." From then on, I made an effort to get close to him, to offer him everything he needed. I told him to endure, to fight, to change his circumstances, that things would get better. And most importantly, I told him to seize every opportunity he could to turn things around. Even if he hadn't been my mission target, I still would have wanted him to have a better future. Unfortunately, while it looked like he was following that advice, it was nothing more than another layer of self-deception. There are two kinds of people who commit evil. The first kind doesn't see their actions as wrong in the first place, so there's no guilt. The second kind knows it's wrong, but does it anyway, weighing personal gain over morality. These people struggle with their conscience, and so the second kind always finds a way to justify their actions to make themselves feel better. That's why Kenji was standing in front of me now, saying it was me who had taught him this. People like him, whose malice isn't pure, inevitably fall prey to their own kind. They expose their weaknesses to those who are just like them, seeking trust only to be completely devoured. That's why Sora would destroy him. I knew Kenji wasn't the root cause of this entire mess, but I had no interest in reminiscing with him. The water gushed from the faucet as I withdrew my hand, pulled a paper towel, and glanced at Kenji through the mirror. With a polite smile, I said, "Congratulations. You got what you wanted." His smile stiffened. I didn't wait for him to respond before turning and walking away. I had intended to say a quick goodbye to my friends and leave, but the moment I stepped into the banquet hall, I heard a drunken voice call out to me, "Leo? Lyra just landed another endorsement recently. Her future looks brighter than ever. As her good friend, aren't you going to congratulate her? Though, well, you're not her only good friend, but you two did grow up together. You wouldn't be upset just because someone pointed out the truth, would you?" Ha ha ha. All eyes in the room turned to me. Lyra, holding her wine glass, glanced over indifferently, as if all of this had nothing to do with her. That man wasn't wrong. A while ago, when Lyra and Kenji had been caught entering a hotel together, the scandal had only boosted her popularity. With the help of her PR team, not only did it fail to damage her reputation, but it also landed her an endorsement deal coveted by many other celebrities. If Kenji was the one she could never let go of emotionally, then becoming a superstar had always been her lifelong dream. She had worked hard for this over the years. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, a massive billboard displayed the advertisement for her newest endorsement. It was her moment of glory. I stood in silence for a few seconds. Then I took the glass offered by the waiter and from across the room, raised it in Lyra's direction. With a composed smile, I offered my congratulations. "Then I wish you a dazzling career in the spotlight." I lied. I didn't want her to shine. I didn't want her future to be promising. I wanted her to fall from grace. I want her to be in utter misery, trapped in fire and water. I want her to heal only to forget the pain so she can suffer all over again. Chapter 7. The recovery card completely expired on an otherwise ordinary evening. The sky, washed clean by the rain, stretched pale and empty above me as I waited at a crosswalk for the light to change. Then the system's voice suddenly echoed in my mind. "Patient symptom initialization progress completed." In an instant, the sounds of passing cars faded into silence, and my vision blurred. Memories surged like an unstoppable tide, colliding and overlapping until only one thought remained crystal clear. Lyra would never stand up again. The phone in my pocket vibrated gently. It was a call from Lyra's attending physician. He was the same doctor who had restored her legs all those years ago. Every year since, He had conducted her follow-ups and reported the results to me immediately. Every time, the results had been the same. Her recovery remained perfect, nothing out of the ordinary. But this time, hesitation laced his voice as he spoke. "I'm sorry, Mr. Wong. Miss Lu's old injuries have suddenly relapsed. The deterioration is progressing rapidly. We haven't yet identified the cause, but rest assured, we are contacting specialists abroad." I cut him off. "You don't need to update me on Lyra's condition anymore." The other end of the line fell silent for a moment. Then, after a brief pause, he hesitated. "But you specifically asked me before." He was about to remind me. Remind me that I had once insisted every single time Lyra had a follow-up, I was to be informed immediately. Remind me that no one had cared more about her recovery than I had. I held the phone quietly. I never heard the rest of his sentence. After a short silence, he simply said, "Understood." He must have been standing near the hospital room when we spoke, because just before the call ended, I heard the sound of glass shattering and a nurse's careful voice trying to soothe someone. "Miss Lu, please calm down." I thought Lyra probably understood her condition better than the doctor ever could. But even worse than her legs was her dream. The entertainment industry moves fast. To the profit-driven capitalists running the show, a star who can no longer stand is worthless. First to abandon her was her company. With each passing day, her roles, endorsements, and sponsorships were swiftly carved up by others, devoured without hesitation. What remained were only massive breach of contract penalties and a flood of scandals, both real and fabricated. As new talents were promoted to step on her fallen reputation, as gossip accounts sucked the last drop of attention from her name, Lyra faded into oblivion. The last time I heard her name from a stranger was on a public bus. Two young girls were chatting behind me about a newly debuted actress. One of them said, "Wow, the entertainment industry replaces stars so fast. She really looks like Lyra." The other scoffed, "Ugh, don't even say that. What bad luck. Our new queen is a true leading lady, not some pathetic girl who broke her legs over a man, missed her college entrance exams, and then made the same mistake all over again." I turned my head slightly, looking out the window at the massive billboard on the building across the street, and suddenly I remembered. Not long after Lyra had entered the industry, we had passed by here together. She had pointed at the billboard, advertisement on the billboard, her eyes brimming with hope as she asked me, "Leo, do you think one day my picture will be up there?" I had smiled, ruffling her hair as I replied, "Of course it will." And in the end, it did. She had become a celebrated actress, walking her path to success without any obstacles in sight. But now new faces had replaced the old. The billboard that once bore her image had long been torn down and discarded. Lyra's era had ended. Chapter 8. When I made the decision to let go of Lyra, I had imagined this moment countless times. Her legs giving out again, her world crumbling. I pictured myself rushing to her side, triumphant and cruel, sneering down at her as I said, "Well, Lyra, still think it's no big deal." But now that the day had truly come, I felt nothing. No excitement, no satisfaction. In fact, if the orphanage director hadn't reached out to me, I probably wouldn't have gone to the hospital at all. Gone were the days when the thought of seeing her filled me with anticipation. Before that, I had already received countless messages from mutual friends. All of them said the same thing. "Leo, something happened to Lyra. Come to the hospital now. When are you going to see Lyra? Her leg injury has relapsed. You grew up together. Are you really going to abandon her? Do you even know what kind of state Lyra is in right now?" Of course I knew. I could picture it vividly. Her legs ruined, her tears streaming down as she broke down completely. And even Kenji's choice was the same as before. The system informed me he had abandoned Lyra again. At first, when her condition worsened, Kenji put on a responsible facade, making promises to her. "Lyra, don't worry, you'll get better. I'll stay with you this time. I wasn't by your side before, but I won't make the same mistake again." But as each diagnosis came back worse than the last, and as Lyra spiraled deeper into despair, Kenji began to grow anxious, irritable. His reassurances turned into half-hearted excuses. "The doctors are still discussing treatment options. Just hang in there." "I'm not a doctor. What's the point of me staying here?" The final rupture between them came when the doctor officially declared her permanently disabled. Almost immediately, her agency cut ties with her, brands started pulling their contracts, and scandals, real and fabricated, flooded the media. At the same time, the woman who had once abandoned Kenji, his ex-girlfriend Sora, suddenly reappeared. Tears in her eyes, voice trembling, she begged him for forgiveness. Kenji no longer bothered hiding his disgust toward Lyra when he finally muttered that he couldn't afford to waste any more time on her. Lyra snapped, "Kenji, don't you dare forget. I'm like this because of you." But all she got in return was his indifferent reply. He frowned. "Because of me? Lyra, you threw yourself at me and got beaten up for it. Did I force you? And besides, she is me. What does any of this have to do with me?" That was the breaking point. Lyra hurled a glass at the floor, screaming at him to get out. Kenji didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and bolted straight into the arms of the woman who had left him before. The system cut off the playback there. I wasn't sure how to describe the emotions I felt at that moment. A sense of inevitability, a quiet, hollow feeling of everything coming full circle. I never responded to any of the messages from our friends, not even the one buried deep at the bottom of my inbox. "Leo, my legs hurt so much." Chapter 9. I saw Lyra at the hospital. Her condition was worse than the rumors suggested. Whatever fragile beauty she once had long been devoured by pain, leaving her looking haggard and gaunt. When I arrived, she was asleep, having just been sedated for fear she might hurt herself in another outburst. The orphanage director, who knew nothing of our recent history, simply assumed there'd been some misunderstanding between us. She sighed softly and said, "Time really flies. I still remember how you two were always together when you were little. You were the quiet one, and Lyra was shy. She was scared of everyone except you. You were the only one who made her feel safe. Now, all of a sudden, something like this happens. The rumors online are so chaotic, I don't know what's true and what's not. But I hope you're both doing okay. No matter what, I'm sure Lyra really wants you by her side right now. Childhood bonds aren't easy to come by, Leo." I smiled politely and replied with careful tact, "Director, in this orphanage, childhood bonds are everywhere. If that's how we define it, Lyra's hardly my only childhood friend. Besides, I'm sure you remember when she got hurt all those years ago. The news going around now isn't really that far off the mark. And in any case, I have my own life. One day I might meet someone I truly care for. I can't just stay by her side forever for the sake of some minor childhood bond." Only then did I realize that Lyra, who had seemed fast asleep, was actually awake. She didn't open her eyes, but her eyelids fluttered slightly. The director murmured something about how things aren't as simple as they used to be and stepped outside to take a phone call. I reached for an orange, peeling it slowly. Its fresh scent momentarily drowned out the sharp smell of disinfectant. Lyra opened her eyes, stared at the ceiling, and spoke in a shaky voice. "I had a dream. In it, you came from another world and you stayed here for me. There was a system and you used all your points to get a recovery card so I could stand on my own legs again." I kept my head down, focusing on peeling the orange. Truth be told, I wasn't surprised she dreamed about that because it was something I asked the system to show her in her sleep. Since it was my doing, it made sense to let her know. So when she finished speaking, I tore away some of the white pith and went along with her story. It wasn't a dream. It really happened. Not only that, I can still change my mind anytime. I can use my remaining points to renew the card, make it permanent, so you could stand up again. I was telling the truth. Ever since I'd given up on renewing the recovery card, the system had made it clear that as long as I had enough points, I could go back on that decision at any time. At my words, Lyra turned her head sharply, a flicker of hope in her eyes. I offered her a faint smile. But on my way to the hospital, I spent those points on a stray orange cat that had lost both its hind legs. I wasn't lying. That cat's hind legs had likely been severed when it was very young. It dragged itself around in hiding, pitiful to watch. The points it cost to heal the cat were minimal, an amount easily accumulated, and I could give it an instant permanent recovery. After all, nobody pays attention to sudden changes in a stray cat's condition. When my words sank in, the color drained from Lyra's face. After a long silence, she bit her lip and asked, "Leo, you never really loved me that much, did you?" I paused in the middle of peeling away the orange's pith, studied the look in her eyes, and felt an urge to laugh, because deep down she had always known I loved her enough that she believed a little provocation might make me prove it by repeating all of this again. Chapter 10. I really don't like revisiting the past, but I've known Lyra for so long and we've experienced so much together that when I wake in the middle of the night at my weakest moments, I can't help remembering all the times I took her from one production set to another, helping her audition, the way I'd stand outside in the freezing snow, passing out flyers for her appearances, searching through every frame of her work to clip and edit a promotional video. I'm not sure what frame of mind she was in when she made that remark, but I didn't get angry. I just answered calmly, "Look, if seeing it that way makes you feel better, you can believe that if you want. But, Lyra, I really have no feelings left for you." The hospital room went quiet again. She gazed back up at the ceiling. After a long pause, she murmured so softly it sounded like a bitter joke, "Right. You don't love me anymore. If nothing unexpected happens, that should be the last time we ever see each other." Lyra seemed to sense it too. Before I left, she clutched the corner of my shirt. Her eyes were red as if she were desperately trying to keep her emotions in check. She asked me, "If I hadn't stood you up that night, would everything be different now?" I took a half step back, pinching the bridge of my nose and said, "Lyra, there is no if. Once you make a choice, you have to deal with the consequences." On the way home, the system sounded confused. "Host, why not give her another chance? Maybe things would be different this time." I shook my head. "Because we've already seen how things turn out with Lyra," I replied. "She got abandoned a second time, so there's no reason I wouldn't get abandoned a second time. And of course, there's Kenji. As for their so-called reunion, well, his girlfriend, the one who initially left him, had gotten involved in a pyramid scheme and tried to lure him into their hideout. After the police raided the entire operation, she committed suicide by jumping off a building. Debt collectors came knocking at his door. I asked the system, 'Are you going to pick a new host to save him now?' 'It's not possible,' it said. 'He only had one chance, and it wasn't for life. The mission has been completed successfully. The salvation system has unbound itself from Kenji.' I nodded, then asked a different question. 'So, why did you choose me in the first place?' I remembered how they dragged me here without even asking. The salvation system, when selecting a target who needs help, conducts extensive data analysis. By the same token, we run data analysis to find the best possible host. Our results showed that your upbringing was very similar to Kenji's. You'd understand him more deeply, and the success rate would be higher." A smile froze on my face. I'd nearly forgotten that my real home life wasn't so different, with a father who drank and was violent, and a mother who just stood by coldly. I worked desperately to get away from them, and right after I started college, the system whisked me off to this world. Going home wouldn't cost any points. That was my reward for finishing the mission. It was also the system's compensation for having forced me into this world without my permission. They'd grant me a single wish. Tentatively, I asked, "Any wish at all?" The system answered, "Yes, any wish at all, on the condition that it didn't violate any laws, morals, or the natural order." I hadn't decided yet what that wish should be, so I decided to go home first. I spent a week tying up loose ends at work, saying goodbye to friends, telling them I was traveling abroad. When I was about to leave this world, the system gave a final reminder that salvation system is about to unbind from the host. "Please rate our service." I said, and replied, "Next time, remember to ask your prospective host for consent. Don't act like a human trafficker, hauling people off by force." The system went quiet for a few seconds. Then, it responded, "Thank you for your feedback. The Salvation System headquarters will immediately implement corrective measures." Finally, in the midst of my consciousness fading away, I heard a soft beep and the system spoke one last time. "Unbinding complete. Host goodbye." Chapter 11. I woke up in my dormitory bed. The ceiling fan whirred softly overhead, its rhythmic humming blending with the chorus of cicadas chirping outside. The air carried a mixture of familiar scents, detergent, old books, and the faint trace of instant coffee. The system had altered the flow of time between worlds. The 20 years I had spent in that other world had amounted to nothing more than a 20-minute afternoon nap here. Life grew busier after that. Sometimes, late at night, in those moments when the world was utterly quiet, I would suddenly recall the journey to another life. It felt distant, as if it had all been nothing more than a fleeting dream. Memories that once seemed unforgettable were gradually buried beneath the endless tide of time. The only thing that lingered, The one thought that never quite faded was the wish the system had promised me. For a long time, I wondered how I was supposed to contact it after the unbinding. How was I supposed to tell it what I wanted? Luckily, I had never quite figured out what I truly wished for. Then, many years later, on one of my birthdays, the lights in the room were turned off and candles flickered in the darkness. I closed my eyes. For the first time in a long while, I took my wish seriously. And just as I did, a familiar mechanical voice echoed softly in my mind. "Leo, happy birthday."